Hello, welcome to Central Park. My name is Brendan. The Central Park Conservancy, the organization that I work for, we are the nonprofit who take care of Central Park year round. And because getting to Central Park is not an option for everyone, we here at the Conservancy wanted to bring the park to you. You can join us every Wednesday at 12:30 for a virtual lunchtime stroll. Today, we're going to wander around the pool at 100th Street. We're going to see some birds and some arches and some trees and, of course, the pool itself. We're going to be together for about 15 minutes or so, and all the photos that you're going to see were taken, for the most part, in the last week or so. So it'll give you a chance to see the park as it is today. Before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. You can use the chat, which I see so many of you already have, and hello to all of you who said hello in the chat. You can find the feature on your Zoom control bar. Please say hello and comment. You can also use the Q&A feature. It's also on the control bar. And you can ask any questions that you want. My colleagues Juan and Jose, they're on the back end and they're going to be answering questions as we go. At the end of the program, I'll leave the room open for just a few minutes, so we'll grab any last questions. So if you're waiting on an answer, just hold out at the end and we'll get back to you. You're also going to be invited to participate in some polls. And it's pretty easy. You're going to see something pop up on your screen. You push a button to vote, and then you're good to go. And just to show you what I mean, I'm going to launch the first one now. I would love to see, before we even start, how many of you have actually been to the pool in Central Park. So you'll see a poll pop up on your screen. Vote, and I'll share the results in just a little bit. All right. Before I show you the route that we're going to walk today on our virtual stroll, I want to tell you how the pool fits into the larger story of Central Park's North End. And you can actually see a map of the park's North End on the screen right now. Now, we know that everything in Central Park is man-made. And this area of the park, although it's perhaps the most wild, it's no exception. The watercourse that goes through the North End, it goes from the pool through the lock to the mere, and there it is. This was designed, heavily designed, by Frederick Olmsted and Calvert Vaux, the two designers of Central Park. They dug the pool, they created the lock and the ravine, and then they added huge boulders to make 5 original cascades or tiny waterfalls. And then they flooded the area, which was a tidal marsh, to make the mere. And so this watercourse was, and still is, fed from a pipe that connects to the reservoir. However, just because the area is man-made doesn't mean that nature didn't play a part. All right, Olmsted famously said, use the topography as an underlying skeleton on which to lay other things. And in this case, that's exactly what they did. The pool's origins can be traced back to one of the only historic watercourses that exists within the borders of the park. You can see that little squiggly black line that goes diagonally up through this image. It's called Montagnes Rivulet. The designers use this watercourse as a template for the watercourse of the North End. This is a section of a very cool map. It's called the Sanitary and Topographical Map of the City and Island of New York. And it shows the streams, but also the marshes throughout the island of Manhattan. And if you joined us for our weekly walk in the North Woods with Ian, you've actually seen this map before, so you're one step ahead of the game. All right, now that we understand the watercourse, let's get to the pool, shall we? This is our route for today's walk. And although the path around the pool is a circle, you can connect. We are not going to make a complete circle. We're gonna kind of ping pong around. We're gonna chart our own course. We're going to see some bridges again and some trees and some wildlife. Let's figure out how many people have been to the pool. End polling, share results. Looks like of the roughly 250 people, we've got a lot of folks who've never visited before, which is incredible. And I'm so excited to share with you. We've got some folks who visit all the time. Maybe it's your spot, and a few folks who've seen it once or twice. Well, I hope by the end of this, you all feel a little bit more connected to this really cool part of Central Park. Okay, onward, shall we? We always start as an entrance, and so here's the entrance today. Now, all the original entrances of Central Park were named. At 100th Street on the west side, we have Boys Gate. At 106th Street, we have Strangers Gate. And they're called gates because there were proposed gates actually for these entrances. But we are currently at 103rd Street, and this was not an original entrance, and so it does not have a name. It's just 103rd Street. So we're going to go on in from 103rd Street. The northern end of Central Park, as you may know, it's really hilly, hillier, that was hard, far hillier than the southern section of the park. And you can really see that represented here. You can see that the hill kind of slopes down, and the pool almost sits in a little valley. The pool is at the base of the Great Hill, which is a place we're going to explore in a few weeks. All right, our first stop is at a tree. We're going to take the left path over here. So this tree in front of us is a huge ginkgo tree. And it has these really signature ginkgo leaves. And every fall, this tree has a very signature ginkgo smell. And that's because this tree is female, essentially, and it bears fruit. And you can see those fruits as the little almost cherry-like things in here, and those really signature leaves. Now, when these fruits fall and when they crack, they have a less than perhaps pleasant odor. Now, as beautiful as the pool is, sometimes it actually has a slight odor as well, especially in the summer, and I'm going to tell you why in just a second. So we're going to walk down this path, we're going to turn right, we're going to cut across a little meadow, and then head to the shoreline of the pool. Here it is. This is what we came for. This is the pool. Although I can't hear you or see you, I know you have questions. You're probably saying, wait, where's the pool? All I see is this beautifully manicured lawn. Well, this is indeed the pool, and it is indeed covered with a green, very well manicured green plant, but it's not grass, it's called duckweed. We've seen a really dramatic increase in duckweed in the last 5 years or so in this particular water body, but other water bodies in the park. And to be honest, nobody knows why. Now, some folks, they see the pool like this, and they smell maybe a slight odor, and they think the water body is unhealthy, but I'm going to set the record straight. The pool is actually really perfectly healthy. In fact, it might be too healthy. In short, the pool has taken too many vitamins. Now, here's the longer answer. The pool is a really calm and shallow and sunny man-made pond, and it has an overabundance of available nutrients that constantly flow into the water. So the nutrients are coming from storm drains. They're coming from the city's water supply, which also has nutrients in it. There's organic material like leaves. There's road pollution, which is not great. There's also rainfall. There's animal feces, which is gross, but totally natural. And so because the pool has so many nutrients, the pond flora, it really thrives here. Now, before you pass judgment on duckweed, we're going to dig in here because honestly, I think this is really interesting. This isn't my hand. I reached out to our natural areas team and they provided me with a few photos. So what is duckweed? What are these plants? Well, the most abundant plant that's floating on the top of the pool, that kind of green sheen, they're all native species of what's called duckweed, and there's common duckweed and duckmeal and watermeal. The most abundant plants that are underneath on the bottom of the pool, it's going to be curly pondweed, leafy pondweed, American waterweed, and then some algae. Now, all of these are signs of a healthy pond. However, even the healthiest pond can have an odor. And the reason, well, when things decompose, like plant material, it tends to smell. And since the pool is fairly small, and since we have so much plant material, the smell might be a little bit more noticeable here. It's not too bad. It doesn't take away from the magic of the pool, believe me. A lot of people ask if duckweed is dangerous. Well, the ducks don't think so. However, the water, it can be harmful, but it has nothing to do with the plants. It actually has to do with a cyanobacteria. We're getting really deep here. There's something every summer called HABs, or harmful algae blooms, which is a misnomer because it's not actually algae. Again, it's a bacteria. And when that bacteria is present, getting in the water can cause skin irritation for humans, and it actually can be quite harmful to dogs. We see it in Turtle Pond and in the Mere and in the lake, but not actually usually in this water body. And this is actually not a comment on management at all. It's just a comment on nature, because this happens all over New York City, especially in man-made water bodies. And again, this one is man-made. In general, however, just don't go in the water. And it's best to keep your furry friends out of the water as well. There's actually a lot of dog drinking fountains around the park, and we encourage folks to use those. Now, a lot of people also say, if there's so much duckweed, why don't you do something about it? We do, by the cartload. Sometimes, however, it's just a little bit hard to see, but here's one of the images of our process. So although these water plants are so natural, having too many of them can cause problems. They suck a lot of oxygen out of the water, and it can make it kind of tough for the fish. So we actually go into the bottom of the pond and we weed it. We also skim duckweed off the top with big nets, and then we pull it to the shore and then we fill it in carts. And a lot of this stuff can be taken to a compost pile that we have in the park. And we don't want to get rid of all the duckweed though, because it's part of the larger ecosystem. And we work really closely with the Department of Environmental Protection and the Parks Department to monitor all the water bodies. But until we know exactly why we have so much duckweed, we don't really want to do something major, because we might end up doing more harm than good. So really, we just kind of see this water body as a natural water body that's just doing its thing. And we're going to keep learning and eventually find out what its thing is. Now, I know that was a lot and a lot of science, but I hope maybe you see duckweed a little bit differently now. It's really interesting because here at the Central Park, we have this push and pull between, manicured lawns and also nature. So sometimes you find yourself in nature and a little bit surprised that nature is actually blooming in the middle of Central Park. Now, we're going to continue on our walk. No more duckweed. We are going to walk over toward Glen Span Arch. So let's keep going. Now, as we round the bend, we come to one of the park's rustic bridges, and this is created out of black locust, which is a very rot-resistant wood, and we have some black locust trees in the park, and I'm going to show you a black locust tree in just a little bit. One thing I've realized as I've led these walks, we've been doing them almost now for 3 months, it's just reinforced how much I love the color green. And I love that you can see the reflection of the trees on this clear water here. And the reason that you see the duckweed thinning out is because this water is moving and the duckweed prefers kind of still water. And this water is moving because it's about to start its quest all the way to the Mere. It starts it by going down a cascade and then heading through Glen Span Arch. Now you can see Glen Span Arch, it's tucked into the trees. If you were on our North Woods walk a few weeks ago, you know that Glen Span is one of the entrances to the North Woods. And you can find all our walks on our website, and one of my colleagues can drop the link into the chat. Although we've already explored the North Woods, I do want to focus on Glen Span for just a second. But I also want to point out the gentleman in the pink shirt who's down at the bottom of this photo. He was staring very intently at the cascade. And I thought he was taking a video of the cascade, but when I got closer, he wasn't actually taking a video of the cascade. He was taking a video of this. This is a grainy shot. It looks like I'm a paparazzi. Now, at first I thought maybe this is a great blue heron, but it's not because it's too white. And so what I'm actually pretty sure it is a black crowned night heron. And he was sitting on this rock, tucked into the cascade, and just another incredible moment in Central Park to really see nature just doing its thing. I'm sorry the photo's not better, but birds go very fast. Okay. I want to point out 2 features inside of Glen Span that I think are particularly cool. They're on the left side and the right side. I also love that you can see through Glen Span and really see the North Woods behind, and it is so inviting. You really do want to go and explore. Now, I tried to take photos that would fit together perfectly, but I failed. Either way, you can still see what I wanted to show you. On either side of the arch, you're going to see these nooks. The one on the left, it's actually called a grotto. And it was a really popular feature in 19th century architecture, especially in these naturalistic stone structures, because it almost made the structure look like a ruin. And that was a very popular idea at the time, building things that looked like the ancient world. The nook on the right used to contain a bench. And I love thinking about late 19th century people kind of sitting on this bench and having the pool to their left and the North Woods to their right, and how different it must have felt for them than the city that was growing up around them. We're going to turn back and we're going to stop to smell the swamp roses. I found these just in front of Glenspan, and the swamp roses they're a member of the rose family. They're a particularly shrubby variety. You can often find them along stream beds and in swamps and in marshes. And if you come across these in an actual swamp, you might find them growing on a bald cypress knee or an exposed log. And we'll see some bald cypress knees here as well. Okay, back to the pool. We made it to the south side of the pool, and we're about halfway through our walk. And we're going to go to one of my favorite trees in the area, and then we're going to head off-road to the shoreline. Before we do, I want to launch our second poll. The pool is one of the best places in the park to see fall foliage. And so I would love to know if you've ever seen fall foliage at the pool. I know many of you haven't been to the pool yet, but I would love to hear regardless. So if you've ever seen it in person, go ahead and click yes. And I'll share the results in just a bit. And here's my favorite tree. Okay. I think this is one of the pool's most magnificent trees. It really enlivens the shoreline. This is a weeping willow, and you can often find them by water, and there's a good reason for that. Weeping willows, they take on water by sinking some of their branches into the shoreline, and you can see a big clump of branches that are in the water on the right side. And at first glance, you might think they look like small willow trees that are kind of sprouting on their own, but then if you trace those branches back, you'll see that they're connected to the trunk. We're going to continue, and we're going to go off-road. All right, this is a very popular bench, and it's framed by these really beautiful bald cypress trees. I said we were going to see these, but we can't because they're actually out of the frame, so sorry. We did see these in one of our recent walks, though. The conservatory water. Now, you can sit here on this bench, and you can completely forget you're in Central Park, because as you stare out across the pool, the trees, they cover the pathway, so you don't see any people. Now, I want to see, let's see. So we've got many, many people, 83%, who've never seen fall foliage at the pool in person. There's the results. I'm about to give you a gift. As I said, the pool is one of the most incredible places to see fall foliage. And even if it's summer, I couldn't take you around the pool without showing you. So let's go sit on the bench, shall we? And then we're going to look across the pool. I'm delaying the reveal. There we go. We have some incredible maples over there. We've got some sweet gum trees, and there's a few others. This was taken last October. No matter what, the pool is a beautiful place, but I think it's really something to see these vibrant colors. I'm going to linger here for just a moment so you can take in the cool fall air and feel the crisp chill on your skin. But we've said it once and we'll say it again. It's also really great to find a tree that you like and go back to that tree over and over and over again to see how it grows and see how it changes. Okay, we're going to go back to the July heat. So continuing up the path, we're going to pass by the water feature that feeds the pool and therefore kind of feeds the rest of the loch and the ravine and into the mere. We're going to turn left to look at that, and then we're going to turn right to look at the cascade. So this small flow of water, it's emerging from what's also called a grotto, and it's what feeds the pool. Now, in addition to being delightful, this contains one of the many secrets of Central Park's construction, because this water, as I said early on, it comes from the reservoir. It's through about a 48-inch pipe that flows out beneath these boulders. Sometimes when people find out that Central Park's man-made and all the water comes out of pipes, they get disappointed, but I think it's an opportunity to get excited, because how incredible to have something that feels so natural that was created inside of this huge city here. If we watch the water go underneath the bridge, we get here. I love the little sprigs that are coming out between these rocks. And I love thinking about how the creators of Central Park actually place these rocks here to make the perfect cascade, one that creates little pools and tens of tiny little waterfalls as it flows down. Okay, we're gonna cut across the lawn and see some trees. This is that black locust that I promised you. It sits right in the middle of the field. Now, although we at the Conservancy love these trees because they produce that really hardy wood that lets us make our rustic architecture, we don't love them for their invasive nature. So we actually don't plant these in the park any longer. Now, this particular tree has a really great bunch of leaves at the base that lets you see its opposite leaf arrangement. These trees are often confused with honey locust trees, which are similar. But if you approach a honey locust, which we have some in Central Park, you're going to see the difference very quickly because honey locusts have these really vicious spines and thorns that come out. Now, we get a lot of questions about invasive species, and the question is, why do we have them in Central Park? But when it comes to trees, if you have a perfectly good adult tree that's healthy, it's part of the ecosystem. And with management, it can stay and it can absolutely serve a ton of functions, which is why we leave these. All right, another tree. Now, the bald cypress that we saw at those benches, that's actually a deciduous conifer. And this is another deciduous conifer. And that means that it loses its needles in the fall and into the winter. This is a dawn redwood. You can see on the left side that it almost looks fluffy. And that's because the needles are very soft. And that's one way to identify a deciduous conifer is when they have soft needles. And on the right, you can kind of get that really a token redwood bark. The map one more time. We're going to begin the last leg of our walk today. And we've snaked our way through the shoreline, but before we go any further, I want to highlight a little area on this map. So I just put a blue triangle up. The pool was originally larger than it is today. In that area, not exactly a triangle, but that area was actually part of it historically. I'm going to show you what I mean. You see how lush this area of the shoreline is, and the ground is kind of wet and dark? Well, this was once a cove of the pool, and there was actually a tiny little rock island here as well. Now, like the pool, here's another great example of how Central Park has been affected by the city around it. In 1961, there was a water main break on Central Park West, and it flowed into this area, and it was a huge deal because it actually washed away the pool's little island, and it kind of filled in this cove. And it effectively decreased the area of the pool from 2 acres to about 1.5, which is what it is today. So we're going to take this little boardwalk, and we're going to go through the cove, and then we're going to head up the path to 100th Street. But as you walk, be mindful of that tree that's sticking out over the boardwalk because it will get you. So we've gone around, we've turned, headed back toward 100th Street and climbed up some stairs, and this is our final stop. Now, this is a great tree with a great story. It's an Osage orange tree, and it's really easy to identify, especially right now, because do you see those tennis balls that are hanging in the tree? If you look close, you see kind of neon green tennis balls. Here's a close-up. That's the fruit. And it's because of this kind of bumpy and squiggly fruit that this tree is also called the monkey brain tree. And there are seeds inside, but they're really deep. And the inside of this is very sticky. And so the fruit isn't actually very popular with animals. They might chew on the outside, but they don't really get to the inside to spread the seeds. So the seeds of this tree are mostly spread by this fruit rolling down the hill and then decomposing and then sprouting. This is actually what scientists call an evolutionary anachronism. It's a lot of words, but basically the fruit was made this way for some reason, meaning something used to eat it, and that something is now gone. So the way that it produces is kind of out of date. Today, they're mostly propagated by humans because people like to use them in tree hedges to line roads. All right, we completed our walk. It was a long walk, but I'm really happy you were here to do it with me. But I actually think I have one more thing that I want to show you. We're going to backtrack. We're going to go down the path, And then we're gonna go to that little blue circle, which is right by that cascade that I showed you, by the grotto where the water comes out to feed the pool. We're back at the cascade. We're sitting on a rock right at the edge. Now, when the Central Park Conservancy was founded in the 1980s, they created a detailed report on the state of Central Park. And they said that the pool had lost much of its vegetation, and the shoreline, it showed really significant erosion. And the report read, the result is not beautiful, nor is it effective as a wildlife habitat, since that requires lushness and variety. Well, from everything we've seen today, including the really lush shoreline and the wildlife, I would say that the Conservancy's many restoration projects of this area have proven incredibly fruitful. The pool is really lush, and it is vibrant, and it is biologically diverse, and it's peaceful, and not just for humans. Remember how I said that I love how the water pools on the rocks? Well, so do birds. For you, 30 seconds of birds playing in water. That actually brings us to the end of our walk. I want to thank you so much for visiting Central Park with me today. There are a number of other ways that you can stay connected, and you can find those visiting centralparknyc.org/mycentralpark. And on the My Central Park page, you can learn a little bit more about how the park has served as a respite in times of crisis. You can read stories about how the park is important to New Yorkers, and you can share your own story. I'm going to leave this room open for just a little bit. As I said, we're going to grab any last questions. I'm going to be leading next week's walk as well. And so it's in the same time and the same place, and you can sign up for it, the same place you signed up for this one. We're going to explore an incredible part of the park's history. We're actually going to go to the site of Seneca Village, which is a community that was primarily African Americans, and they lived on the land prior to the creation of Central Park. It has an important history and beautiful trees, and it also has an active natural spring. So I'm really excited to show you that next week. Until then, from the Central Park Conservancy, stay safe and be